Hey, this is Frank. You're listening to an Origins episode of the Unbecoming Platypus podcast. Do you ever feel like you have friends who sometimes just don't get each other? This is a podcast that I recorded with two of my friends, Jake and Noah. We find out the hard ways we struggle to communicate better and sometimes succeed, but sometimes not. For years, the three of us have talked about communication and how it's sometimes easier said than done. Even when we're trying to be understanding, our well-meaning intentions often get lost in translation. We decided to share these conversations with the world. Join us as we find out what happens when three friends try to learn how to really talk to each other.
So in Kenya, It's not a bad transition because I'm not transitioning from anything. This is the beginning.
Well, now it's a bad transition.
No, it's not. This is a transition.
To
this
what?
Is a transitional note.
From what?
From the beginning of nothing.
So it's not a transition.
Well, let's talk about the creation of the universe for a second, okay? The Big Bang was a transition.
Your beginnings are getting a lot better, man.
Thank you. I like to just kind of jump in with like a big bang. Like, pow!
Hey, Jake, when you think of Kenya, what comes to mind?
Well, I'll tell you. You'd say, "How are you, Frank?" And, you'd say, and the response would be, "I'm fine." But what that means in Kenya is fine like fine china or fine silver. It's like, I am doing fine. This is an exceptional state.
I think I get it.
What do you think is the hardest thing one of our friends, someone we know, is going through?
And how are they being brave about it?
Does anyone experience anything hard?
She is.
Okay.
Get it?
Which one?
It's sort of a "that's what she said" reference, but it's very
The
meta.
royal she?
The royal she.
I see.
I'm experiencing something hard right now.
The royal she is, or you are?
She said it.
I'm getting lost in the threads.
It's fine.
Not the Instagram threads.
The Slack threads. They're very confusing.
They are. You guys want to talk about Slack? In a while.
No.
It has been a while, though. You can't disagree with that.
It has.
Has it been a nice while? Would you say it was fine?
It was extremely fine.
A fine time?
Mm-hmm.
Fine dining?
Kenyan time, would you say?
It was rich.
Like Rick?
Like decadent.
Is Rick rich?
Sometimes.
You know what name is weird? Rich Roll. Do you think he'd be a guest on our podcast?
Rich roll?
Rich Roll.
I think he might, if you ask.
Do you think we could turn his name into a verb and start rich rolling people?
Yes.
Good. Let's work on that.
Among the things we should work on is that, for sure.
We need to play that.
We can play it today.
I think we should play that game.
I'm not available. Unless we play it during our workout time. Would you rather do that than 100 kettlebell swings and pistols and running?
You didn't even say burpees.
Ring rows?
No, we're not doing ring rows. We're doing burpee pull-ups.
Like real men.
How do you even, you burpee and then you go completely inverted? You stand up out of the burpee and then go inverted and do a ring row?
Yeah, but you forgot the part where the rings are actively swinging at your face the whole time.
Burpee ring rows are the dumbest thing to program.
I think the intention...
But also I hope they're in the games next year.
I think the intention is to diminish intensity, or perhaps the eccentric portion of the pull-up is too much at high volume and you risk rhabdo or something. But
it increases the amount of curse words, for sure.
Yeah, because if you're doing actual pull-ups, you're out of breath, and so no cursing.
Well, also the swinging ring.
Except for you. I'm always impressed with how capable you are of talking about how hard the workout is while doing it.
Yeah.
One of the differentiating factors of zones 1, 2, 3, 4 is the difficulty in speaking to another person.
Here's the thing, is that my respiratory fitness, cardio fitness is great. My muscular endurance, not great. That's the problem.
I see.
I recently had you giving me tips on how to get a ball to overhead during the hardest moment of my life. And I thought you were at a similar level of difficulty, but clearly not, because you were able to just be like, maybe you should do this.
Yeah, it's all muscular.
It seems like you would.
I'm very fit.
Be able to do this in a better way.
I think what it is that your muscular endurance isn't great because you're using all the oxygen to speak.
Oh, it's possible. Yesterday, so Amy's been saying she wants to work out more. She's been lazy, her words. And I told her I was planning on doing burpees on my rest days to work on my burpees.
100 per day. Just over the course of the day, accumulate 100.
No, for time. So I asked her if she wanted to do burpees with me, and she reluctantly agreed. So we did burpees together on a video call. And then afterwards, she's like, I'm going to do a video, like a fitness video. Do you want to do it? You should do it with me. I'll do the arms video with me. And I went,
this is adorable.
No, I was like, I don't think so. She goes, no, it's no weights or anything. I'm like, all right, that's fine. And it's like doing arm circles and stuff. My God, guys. It was a 10-minute video and I was dying. My delts, my arms, awful. It was the worst thing I've ever done. I'm sticking to CrossFit.
In my mind, there's like, the beginning of this video is like a zoomed in portion of like flabby arm fat. And there's a circle around it and maybe a heat signature saying, this is what we're targeting today.
I don't know. That like the Apple Fitness Plus videos, those are insane workouts. Mm-hmm. They really are. All that stuff's real.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
It's definitely different than CrossFit.
Anyway, the whole workout.
Isometrics and stuff.
The whole workout, I was saying, man, my muscle endurance can use some real help.
I mean, like, there's a reason that holding a plank is the hardest thing a human can do. Were you aware of this? Holding a plank.
No, it doesn't seem right.
And someone broke the record at like 8 hours and 3 minutes for a plank.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Like, how do you train for that?
At my
you plank for 7 hours and 59 minutes, and then you're like, I'm going to go a little bit longer next time.
Yeah.
What's your day look like?
At my fittest several years ago, I was doing CrossFit 5 days a week. I was playing basketball 3 days a week. I was doing like spin classes at lunch with people from work. I was running 3 days a week. I was taking long walks with my dogs constantly, with weight training at home. Pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
And one time, like the core class at the ADM gym. So several of us from logistics went, and that thing hurt so bad. Those, like, when you're 6'4" and you're supposed to lay on your back and like do leg raises and stuff, you can only do like 3 of them.
Yeah.
That's it. I got 3.
Yeah.
I went to
it's like an hour long,
like Le Mills body pump classes once, and this was in a time whenever I was doing strong lifts. Right, it was like, all right, I've got 300 pounds on my back. You squat 5 by 5. So I go into this class, and they're like, grab this stupid looking barbell and put these stupid looking like sand filled plates on it, and we're gonna do some squats. I'm like, I'm a great squatter, so. I don't know what denominations these plates are. Is that a 10-pound plate? I don't know. It's like a weird donut that you put on this barbell. You can't tell. So I put it on, and it was probably like 65, 75
Also, how
pounds.
heavy is the barbell?
I have no idea. Maybe 5 pounds, maybe 2.5.
It's 5 pounds or 15 pounds or something in between. It's probably 7.5.
Let me tell you, I was not used to doing 10 squats in a row at that time in my life. And we did like 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to strip the weight off in the middle of the class and look like an idiot.
Yeah. I understand. I've gone to body pump as well.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. Maybe we should do it.
Maybe.
Maybe it would make us better at CrossFit.
You're listening to an Origins episode of the Unbecoming Platypus podcast. In these episodes, we're learning. We don't know what we're doing yet, and sometimes it shows. We think there's beauty in being a beginner, and we're learning from them, so we publish them. So thanks for listening, and rest assured that there will be better Unbecoming Platypus podcasts ahead.
Well, if you do it like once a month, yeah, it's CrossFit then.
It's true.
Yeah, I do CrossFit. I every once in a while I join an Orange Theory class, and then I'll walk a little bit the next day, and then I drop into a swimming class. And
man,
if you just go through all the gyms and do their free drop-ins, you can do this for like 2 months. Free CrossFit. Boom.
Boom.
So, what is the hardest thing? For real, though. Are we ever going to answer this question?
The hardest thing our friends are going through?
Yeah.
It's probably all of us, and none of us want to talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. I have been.
Because we do not look at each other, so we only have one option.
I mean, we could go in depth on this if you want to.
We can?
Yeah. All right, we'll just start.
Let's do it.
So, it's amazing to me. I've been thinking a lot about disgust mechanisms, right? In their primacy, like a disgust mechanism is a survival mechanism. You have rotten meat in front of you and you are disgusted by it. You can't take a bite and it's adaptive, right? You survive. If you apply that same sort of disgust mechanism to behavior, then you say, I was hitting my sister whenever I was younger, and my mom said, don't hit your sister. And I kept doing it until I had this sort of negative feedback response from her. Story? I was ostracized from my social group in some way. And like that got me at my core, right? As a human. And it said, I will be disowned by my family if I behave in a certain way. So there's almost this disgust trigger within me that says that desire, that's something I'm going to shut down. I'm going to cut it off. It's not me anymore. So I stopped doing it, right? I think that we learn to be disgusted with certain aspects of ourselves, but they're still part of us. And we say no to them most of the time to be in polite society. What happens then is when others exhibit this behavior, it triggers that same disgust response, and we get angry, or we feel hatred, or we feel this sort of abrasive feeling toward that person. Really, it all starts internally. It's a thing we hate about ourselves.
May I have an example?
So, I find it disgusting about me the times that I am not self-aware enough to notice that I'm doing something embarrassing or dumb or these types of things. Like, Jake, be more self-aware. And then whenever I see other people around me who are like, you don't even know what you're doing right now, right? This eats away at me, and I start to see that person differently. And this has nothing to do with them or anything they're doing wrong. It's a belief that I have about myself that behavior is unacceptable.
May I have a more specific example?
So I have a coworker, and this coworker was responsible for determining the scope of a project. I am the project manager. When the scope had been fulfilled completely, I turned it in. It was reviewed, and then this person said, this, and this are not complete. These 3 checklist items. And I go, that wasn't in the scope. Like, that wasn't part of this project. We can ask them to do that, but that's a different project. And, before we really got to this conclusion, like, that person wanted me to go back to the resource who completed the work and say, hey, you didn't do your job, essentially. This made me so mad. because it made me feel like we're taking advantage of someone. I'm responsible for scope creep all of a sudden. I am not aware of what the scope is. Like, I'm now embodying all this lack of awareness. I'm embodying ignorance and these things that I have determined as unacceptable. I can't think critically about what a scope is all of a sudden and tell whenever a project is done. Like, that to me it filled me with rage. And I went, hold on a second. Where is this in the scope? These items are not in there. And, to my knowledge. And then this person said, well, you should, I was under the impression that you understood the scope. And then this is like this recurring sort of cycle of, okay, now I'm angry because you're making character accusations about me. No, I understand the scope. You don't. And it's like this whole thing. But really what it is that at some points in my life, I have felt the embarrassment of being publicly unaware of my own ignorance. And that embarrassment became very disgusting to me. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't want to be that. I don't want people like that to be in my social group. And so this sort of disgust mechanism is at work in this relationship. Now, if I take that a step further, I also acknowledge, and this is what I think is the really cool part about this, that as I begin to accept myself, all the things that I thought were acceptable and unacceptable alike, and I say, this is just me happening. Sometimes I'm going to fail. Sometimes I'm not going to think clearly. This is not a moral assessment of who I am. I'm just okay. When I begin to acknowledge that something is disgusting to me and that I can accept it, I actually increase my capacity to accept other people as well, to see them and to say, hey, that's ignorant, but I love you. Like, we can talk about this. And that sort of helps me to get over these reactions, right? So I found myself recently digging into the parts of myself that I'm really like disgusted by. What do I think is unacceptable? This is the question I keep asking myself. What is it unacceptable to be?
This seems really valuable.
Yeah, it has been.
Do you think that that's the most, like, the embarrassment thing? Does that feel like the most?
That? It's weird. I think, yeah, I mean.
Disgusting thing?
There are all kinds of things. For a long time, I found it absolutely disgusting to be a religious person, to be spiritual in any way. I hated it because for me, it represented like this ideology that I grew up in. And, if you were subscribing to this, then that was a certain degree of ignorance or a lack of critical thinking. And it really created these boundaries for me in what I could be and how big the world I exist in could be. And so by like questioning these parts of myself, I was able to encounter experiences that I wasn't able to before. So now actually I have, gone into this like sort of spiritual questioning space. And it's actually been a really amazing experience that I was blind to.
How do you see yourself in Ariel alone?
How do I see myself what?
In Ariel alone.
That's a perfect question. Like, when we see the people that we dislike for some reason, they're like sandpaper to us. It's
or
probably
Jeffrey Adler.
Because they are similar to us. Jeffrey Adler, dude just won the CrossFit Games, but I saw him in a documentary a couple of years ago in which he was expressing an emotion. Oh, that was another thing. Good God. Why would you be emotional, boy? Stop. Suck it up. Get over it. It is disgusting to me to be emotional. I still have those moments whenever I see Jeffrey Adler. I mean, essentially what he's saying, he said this phrase, he said, anyone can win the CrossFit Games. I just don't want it to be him. And it was this disdain for Matt Fraser. And it was him really. It might not have even
been disdain.
Sure.
Just we're tired of him winning.
Yeah.
He's too good.
It's an emotion.
It might have just been hope, even. It could have been anything.
It could have been anything. It was an emotion, and it was abrasive to me because that's unacceptable. Don't be emotional. Be logical. Be critical, man.
Yeah.
Do you see, I mean, like, what do you think of when I say that? You said you agree with it. It feels valuable. Do you have anything in your life where that, like, connects?
Feels most disgusting?
Yeah. What feels most disgusting to you?
Yeah, it's been emotions for a long time. I am definitely getting more okay with them, more understanding of them. But I haven't given that question like it's due, I would say. What's most disgusting? I think it's very valuable, though. I could see it being very valuable.
Well, it reminds me, like, recently you've been saying, like, being around the people that you find annoying or something like that is highly valuable.
And most repellent thing,
yes.
Ideas and people, yeah.
It's a very similar idea. Like, let me find the value in what you're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of. I think there are ideas that are repellent that aren't in me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it's hard to describe, but I think everybody has encountered this at some point when it's just like this instinctual reaction. It's like it is a repellent feeling when something happens. And I think there's this other side to it as well, which is in boundaries. I read this book and it said that anger is an action signal to the body that your boundaries are being crossed, that your borders are being violated in some way. And for me, the way that this played out was anger is this emotion that is unacceptable. So I would tell myself, I'm not angry. And the result was I lost connection with that action signal. And then I allowed people to breach my borders and I lost a sense of who I was. So for me, paying attention to that particular action signal, like, and just saying, hey, it's okay to feel rage sometimes. It's okay to feel anger. Try not to just like react in it and scream at someone, but like acknowledge it and ask yourself this question: what is that action signal saying? Like, what boundary is being crossed right now? And how do you honor yourself and what you need?
Yeah. I think anger is like injustice. Yeah. That's what it means. That's the meaning inherent. Like, you can change the meaning about that one. And you might have the meaning wrong, and you should probably look to see if it's wrong. But
yeah,
if it's right, then it is an action signal and shouldn't be ignored or suppressed or something, probably. It's, it's just worth checking the meaning, I think.
It's weird, too, because I think that I told myself it's acceptable to be angry if you see injustice towards someone else.
Yeah.
But not you. You're nothing. You're insignificant. You can get over this. Don't be so egoic. You don't matter that much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. They're weird. People are so weird.
Do you have a different experience with anger? Like, that's your most accessible emotion as an 8, right? And I've heard you talk about injustice a lot as well. What's your response whenever you feel that? Is it to ask yourself what's going on?
What in particular? Like injustice?
Just that sort of...
Or just anger in general?
Yeah, that anger feeling. Like you have it. It's a very bodily sensation for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I usually know what triggered me. I don't feel angry very often these days.
What about when you were... This is intentionally not a good example, but I do want to know. It's not a good example of like injustice. Maybe it is. When you were going back from Goshen to your house the other day, and people sucked at driving.
That was frustration.
Yeah. What did you feel like then?
Just frustrated that people were not mean, you'd have to understand that drive back from Goshen.
I know.
It was unjust.
Was it unjust?
Well, first, for some reason in this town, people do not pull into an intersection on a green light when they're turning left. Specifically this town, I've never run into this anywhere else.
Yeah, and they look at you really weird when you do it.
What are they teaching people? It's literally the law.
I don't know. I'm like, it's green. There's a chance I'm going.
Yeah.
You know? But
so I was turning there next to Best Buy to head on Troy Road back to my house.
Yeah.
And the person in front of me did not pull out into the intersection on green, which I expect at this point. But they usually will go if there's time. They had time. They decided not to go. Instead, they let the light turn yellow, stayed there, and for it to turn red. This was the first thing.
okay.
Then the green arrow came up, and they were not paying attention and did not go. I hate honking my horn. I actually honked my horn.
I do 3 phantom honks before I actually...
I hate it.
I don't even know how much pressure it takes to actually honk. So I accidentally don't press hard enough.
So I finally did something like that.
Yeah.
They did not go. And then would not go out into the intersection during green again. And then we finally turned. I would like, thank God we finally turned during that light. Then they drove. It's a 45 mile an hour speed limit there. They drove 25. They finally turned. And then I'm behind a Mark's Appliance truck who decides, with nobody in front of him, to stop. The light ahead is green. I can see it. He decides to stop to let someone turn out of McDonald's with no one in front of him. He just stops in the middle of the road to let somebody turn left out of McDonald's. The person who turns left out of McDonald's pulls out in front of Mark's Appliance truck and then realizes there are people coming, so then just stops in front of Mark's Appliance truck.
Yeah.
I hope they're disgusted with themselves, honestly.
I mean, just the decisions that people were making. I was very frustrated. I wouldn't even say I was angry. I just was like, at some point, I was just astonished. Like, how many times can somebody do something that is the wrong decision?
Yeah.
On this drive home.
There's a specific visual meditation by Sam Harris about traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Have you watched it?
No.
Oh, I'll send it to you. It changed the meaning of these things to me a lot, like in a significant way that they rarely ever affect me.
Yeah, except for when you're on that little fast food stretch of Troy, because you've texted me about that before.
No, it's not 100% effective. But I'm more likely to go to alternative meanings in those moments.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I thought to myself in the moment, I mean this, I did. I thought, okay, the Mark's Appliance guy is trying to be nice. This is not how I would have been nice.
Yeah.
But he's trying to be nice. I told myself that because it is hard to turn left out of there. I don't know why you would stop when there's a green light ahead of you and literally no cars in front of him. It was just the Mark's Appliance truck. He just decided to stop.
Sure.
And let this guy turn out. So I tried to tell myself, all right, he's being nice. He's trying to make somebody's day better. And then the person from McDonald's stopped in front of him. And then I just went, no, this is wrong. This shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Would I have been as frustrated at the Mark's Appliance thing if the thing before it didn't happen? Probably not. It's a buildup of, a buildup of the trip. And it's only from Goshen to my house. But it was a particularly frustrating drive home from Goshen, yes.
Yeah. I think I have a distinct advantage in mindfulness that I didn't know that I was building it as a paramedic.
Mm.
But you can go from cardiac arrest to cardiac arrest, and they're like, your ambulance is destroyed and you don't have supplies, and you really need to get supplies, but they just keep coming, and it's just horrible call after horrible call. And then you go to like a sick kid and the family's really worried, and like every part of you is like, this isn't the time for this, nothing's right, but you suppress it because of how important.
Right. It's the first time for them. Even
Right.
if it's the fifth time for you.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So, but this being open to reassigning meaning in the moment, I got a lot of practice at as a paramedic. But for the car thing, I never even thought of it forever. But driving him, just like someone pulled out in front of me at McDonald's, I try to go like, maybe their boyfriend's broke up with them. They're having a really hard day right now. That's fine. I can stop, And
Sure.
I'm not trying to say you should do this. Is that like actually
what you try to create those narratives?
Yeah, especially when I find myself upset by something. I'm like, wait, hang on. That's a human in there. Like,
what are all
what's
the
going on?
That
like, why am I going with the worst? They're an idiot. Why are they at fast food? Like,
yeah.
They're going to feel terrible. And they don't know how to drive. Like, what's going on in their life? They suck.
And maybe it is sort of an injustice thing, that because I'm actually a pretty patient person in traffic. But I think the things that frustrate me are the things that you didn't follow the rule there. Like, you shouldn't stop your truck in the middle of traffic to let somebody turn out. That's not how traffic works.
Right. Sometimes it even causes accidents.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should pull out into the green light and wait for the traffic to clear so you can go. This is how traffic works. And it also allows more people to get through the light. It's also a common courtesy thing, which I truly do think about. Like, I think about the people behind me when I'm making decisions. Like, how can I help more people get through this light? I really, truly think that.
Sure.
And so I think the things that frustrate me are sort of injustice related.
Yeah.
In a way.
Well, I mean, that's why laws exist. Laws exist so that we can cooperate.
Right.
Like, it's like back to Hammurabi's code. It's like, hey, we don't chop people's legs off. And if you do chop someone's leg off, we're going to chop both your legs off. This is our agreed upon explicit code you pull out in traffic.
If we naturally don't make a light, no problem. We didn't make the light. And this is true. Like, it's frustrating. Let's talk about Troy Road again. Like, when I'm driving out of town to go to St. Louis, there are mornings that you hit every light red, and it's frustrating. But if the traffic is flowing, if everybody's driving quote unquote properly, I'm fine with it. It is what it is. We just are hitting red lights.
It was the best could be.
But if we hit red lights because people decided, because they're not paying attention, they didn't take off when the light turned green, and then all of a sudden now they go 25 miles an hour down the road. Now we hit the next light. Then I start getting frustrated. It's like it is based on other people's sort of behavior that doesn't line up with what I think should be happening. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying it is definitely sort of maybe injustice related, because if it happens naturally, if it's like that organic flow of something, I'm far less frustrated by it. Like, how we hit the red light, whatever.
How do you feel about yourself if it, like, I'm going to assume this has happened once or twice in your life. Like, you're sitting at a light, it's turned green, you didn't realize it, and it gets to the point where the person behind you honks.
Oh yeah, I get frustrated with myself for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and
that was a great way to ask that. I wanted to know it, but I'm like, how do I say this without like, how I wanted to be like, how has this disgusted you in yourself?
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to get there. So.
Yeah. I mean, I typically don't do that for sure.
For sure.
But
that's why I knew. I'm like, you're going to say I don't do it. But
right.
But on the rare occasion that it happens, yeah, I hate that I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it obviously is an adaptive trait. It's conducive to cooperation in society for us to be disgusted by certain behaviors. It's natural for us to do that, but I think that, it really is like this continuum. Here's it at baseline. This is just being disgusted with bad behaviors. And then you can have this sort of inflated or deflated version of it. If it's inflated disgust, you end up with this highly moralistic, legalistic person who's constantly thinking about justice and is stressed out all the time. On the deflated side, you've got a psychopath who's just a sociopath who's just like, yeah, your feelings don't matter. I mean, like, whatever, we're just who we are. Like, you know, screw the ideas. Like, I'll just be me.
Yeah, it's interesting the things that are in us for sure. That there's a time where I haven't succeeded yet, but I've almost augmented my behavior because of a comment that you make every time I don't do it, which is when we're going to St. Louis, there's a split where you go right for some reason that I don't understand. But I do understand this about it. It optimizes something about traffic flow. For me, it's irrelevant, but you comment on it anytime I don't do it.
I'm just trying to help you know that it's faster to go that way.
I know. And
also, you end up in the far right lane, which typically we're wanting to exit.
Yeah.
So it just makes your drive easier. And when you trust your Tesla, you do it wrong.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's just funny to hear you talk about traffic and how much you do think about the people behind you and the people around you and optimizing efficiency. And it makes more sense why you said, I'm like, cause we can be in the middle of a conversation. We're all laughing and you're like, you should have taken that exit. That's faster. And I'm like, how is he even thinking about that right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have the same thing in that way. Like I remember 10 years ago, I mean, like GPS was not a thing most people were using. Maybe it was just starting. And the audio notifications were like super late. It would happen like right as you were about to exit or something, maybe a quarter mile ahead. And for me, like driving in a city where I'm not used to it, I'm constantly like, what lane do I need to be in? You know, is it 8 miles away? Is it half a mile away? I don't know, but I want to know. And so I'd ask you like, hey, what's that map say? Like, what are we about to do?
Yeah.
Like, are you nervous about this?
Here's something that is sort of interesting. We all have experience driving professionally.
Yeah.
But yours is emergency vehicles where you are able to turn on lights and you're not only that, but you're thinking about far more important things than
the
best way to get there.
The most important thing is that I don't create an accident.
Yeah.
And so that isn't the same as I need to optimize traffic flow.
Right.
It really isn't.
Right. And Jake and I are trying to get our routes done as fast as possible. We're trying to think about not having to back in dangerous situations when we're driving trucks. We're trying to think about not having to change lanes in a big truck. You know what I mean? We're thinking about how do I get from point A to point B as fast as possible and without having to do things that make my trip more dangerous.
Right. Yeah.
It's a different thought process.
Yeah. I mean, some parts of it are the same, but it's definitely different optimizations. Yeah. It's definitely true.
There's another thing that came from driving a straight truck though. I'm a small guy, right? And I didn't really think about what the vehicle that I go through this life in does to my mentality until I started driving a truck that is giant compared to other vehicles. And like, you know, yes, it's true that we had to go into a gas station or something like that and back toward, you know, an ice box. Another thing that I had to do sometimes though was completely stop traffic. Let me pull my truck across two lanes of traffic and, you know, get in everybody's way and stop them. This was very foreign to me at the beginning. I'm used to just getting out of the way, squeezing into small places, like, let me just not be in the way at all. Eventually, though, after a couple of years of this is second nature. It's just like, yeah, they're going to stop. They have to. And it was no big deal. That was like completely an alien thought to me.
Yeah. And you're way more willing to allow others to do that now, probably.
Oh, yeah.
I had, when I was a block away, 2 blocks away from this is funny because it's kind of similar in that it was one thing after another. but I was a different mindset. I was coming down Vandeventer going towards the hill, towards my office, and there was a semi trying to back into a very small dock off of Vandeventer, and he was struggling. Probably a newish driver. He kept having to straighten out. I mean, he just was really struggling, and I just sat there and watched, and I got probably frustrated by people trying to go around him as I'm like, dude, let the guy, try to get out of the traffic. And it took a while. Like, I mean, it was a good 3-4 minutes probably for him to finally get out of the way. I just sat there and watched it happen. And then I get down and I turn on Marconi, which is the street my office is on. And right after having this happen, there was like a sewer truck or something trying to back into a tiny little alley on Marconi. I mean, like back to back, these things happen. Sure. I just sat there and watched this guy back into the alley. I was like, yeah, this is, it sucks. Like, he doesn't want to be doing this. Right. You know what I mean? Totally different experience because I understand that situation.
That is a perfect picture of what I was talking about earlier with like boundaries though.
Yeah.
Is, this sort of idea that I'm small, let me just get out of the way. I don't matter. Everybody else matters. Implicit in that is this sort of concept like, I don't deserve to take up space in the world, and it's in there. It's a belief that's just integrated in this bundle.
Yeah.
But as I start to allow myself room to exist in the world and say, no, my boundaries matter. You're not allowed to cross them. Like, I'm going to act on this. As I begin to accept that about myself, I begin to accept that in others as well. So like, after having this experience of being in the big truck and stopping traffic and understanding the situation, I now, when I see someone crossing traffic and having a hard time, I'm like, no, you deserve to have your space. You can figure this out as well.
And you understand the stress that person's in, especially the guy, the first one, it was like an Estes truck or something. It was like, it was a 18-wheeler, and he was trying to back into this little alley, and it seemed like he wasn't particularly good at it, probably a new driver. And I'm thinking, man, he's got to be stressed. Like, he knows there's a line of cars waiting to get past him.
Definitely.
He's embarrassed probably that he's not backing better. Like, I understand in his head what's going on. And it just gives you a whole different
I think what you and I are describing is like, I've had this experience so I can sympathize with them. And what Frank is describing with the visualization is I don't have to sympathize. I can empathize. Let me construct a narrative for this person that just gives them the benefit of the doubt and says, no, they did just get broken up with by their boyfriend.
Specifically, if I already did that and it's a bad one, like this person's, there's something wrong. Like, why are they doing this to me? Or something. Then I'm like, wait, like they're just a human in there too. And on my worst day, what's that like? I pull out in front of people? Probably.
And I'm not, this isn't really to defend myself, but I do think there's still a difference. Like, if that Mark's appliance truck had been trying to back into something, like for his job, like, would have had a whole different level of patience than him stopping traffic literally to let somebody pull out of McDonald's. Just because it's the difference between like necessity, like law and necessity. Like, there's nothing against the law for you to back in and make your delivery. And I understand that you need space to do that.
Yeah.
But to literally stop traffic, to allow someone to pull out, I mean, that's just how traffic flows. They have to wait until it's their turn to go. And that's probably the injustice. It's like, why would you stop and let them go?
Yeah.
I get that. I swear I'm not trying to change you, but like, what narrative could you come up with right there that's just like completely absolves that person?
Well, like I told you, I literally thought to myself in the moment, oh, he's being a nice person. I really, truly did. And then it was like, it just got exacerbated when the person pulled out in front of the Marks. Yeah. He didn't even pull out until the turn lane. He could have gone into the turn lane that's there. He stopped in front of the Marks truck and then waited for other cars to pass. And I'm just like, what?
It's like the person who pays for the order behind them at Starbucks, and it just keeps going.
Could you see the person that pulled out in front of the Marks truck and stopped traffic?
No, I couldn't see.
You could only see the nose eye contact with them or something.
Huh?
You couldn't make eye contact with them?
Mm-mm.
If you would have, and they would have been like actively crying. would it have changed the way you felt about the situation?
Probably not. No.
No? You wouldn't have understood
It
why
might
the
have made it
Mark's truck
worse.
stopped.
It might have been like, well, if you're crying that hard, why are you driving?
Yeah. Maybe they were like, well, I wasn't. I was stopped in McDonald's with Mark's truck made me go.
Sure. I'm not saying there aren't narratives here. I'm just saying that that's the difference between waiting for a delivery guy trying to back into a dock or being frustrated that someone can't turn on a McDonald's.
It's crazy how much happens in moments, especially in traffic. Any of these situations where humans are colliding, and vehicles accelerate that rate in which humans' ideas collide. You add lights and sirens, it's even faster collisions. But
I equally get frustrated. I've had people want me to turn, like it's their right of way. And they want me to, they're like, go ahead and turn. And I'm like, you're supposed to keep driving, not stop. I've had people stop to let me turn.
I know. Yeah.
And I'm equally frustrated. Like they're trying to let me go. And I'm like, this isn't how it works. You keep driving, I'll go after you're gone.
Right.
Why would you stop in the middle of traffic to let me turn?
Yeah.
It is really way more about.
I've been to tons of accidents because someone waved someone on or someone told a bicyclist to go.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead.
Crossing
right in
traffic
front
to
of a
turn
truck.
left or something.
Yeah.
I can't see over there yet.
Right.
It's far less about me. I'm not saying there is no me in it, but it's far less about like, how can I get home quicker? And far more about like, this isn't how this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. And I get, I think about something that I said to Amy in Puerto Rico when we were driving around, and, we were in Puerto Rico driving around for a week together too.
Puerto Rico traffic.
But I was saying to Amy, it's not that people disobey laws or whatever that frustrates me. It's that everybody does whatever they want. If there was an agreed upon, like, we disobey this rule, but we don't this one. Like if there was an agreed upon, like if you knew what to expect, it would be far less frustrating. The frustrating thing is that you don't know what to expect. People might run this red light, or people might turn here when they shouldn't, or whatever. But if you just knew, this is the accepted norm here, it would be far less frustrating because you could predict behavior.
That's funny because that is so I had a sort of operating picture like that when I moved to Charleston. Mm-hmm. In Charleston, they do not teach you what to do when an emergency vehicle is behind you. That's just not a part of driver's ed there. So some people go to the middle. Some people slam on their brakes. Some people go to the right. There is no standardized thing that they do. Yeah. And often it results in you can't get anywhere because everyone stops in their lane. But it changed my approach to this is all unpredictable. Yeah. Like the standard is that it's unpredictable what will happen. And oddly, that's still the approach I use even at that split. When I'm driving, when the Tesla's on autopilot and it's in this lane, I'm like, this road is curvy. There's trucks everywhere. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're going to be able to stay in their lane. There's also potholes everywhere. I don't really destroy my wheels. I'm having a conversation with my friends. All these things are going on. The last thing I care about is whether I'm in that lane or this lane. These roads both go the same place. And so that's why it's so because all these local factors are happening for me. Like, these roads are going to get me there. So I do understand it.
Oh, for me, it's thought about it way ahead of that. It's not about making the decision at the last moment. It's about being in the lane you need to be in before you get there.
I know.
Yeah. It's so interesting because quite literally you can be two people standing in the same place, living in different worlds. And it's all based upon this system that you're either subscribing to or not subscribing to. If you believe there is social order in the world, you will go about the world seeing the injustices. If you believe there is no order and it's all chaos, you will see opportunities to just be and do. But it's all based on this belief entirely. And it changes where you're living.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting for sure, but I don't know. Your original question was about anger in general and where that comes, but I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
I think it probably is injustice related though most of the time.
Yeah.
It sounds like it to me. Yeah. And it sounds like it's also what Jake was saying about disgust, like the thing you sort of really hate it when you are the one doing it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it that often, but when I do, I don't like it for sure.
Yeah, it's like to be self-interested regardless of what the effect on anyone else is. This is unacceptable.
Yeah, this is funny to me, really funny, because it's one of the areas where me and you are very different. And I've seen it like, I can't remember. I think at the hotel in Puerto Rico, you went and asked the desk something when we got there.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember being like, why is he asking? Like, I just was something that I would never ask. And it was because you want to follow the rules. You think they exist for a reason. You want to be efficient.
I have no idea
I don't know what the thing was either, but I do remember being like, is he really asking that to Jake? And he's like, yeah. And it was something I would never ask.
It was something like, is it okay if I leave my car in the front when I'm taking my clothes up to the room and come right back?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Something like that. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to tow our car in 10 minutes, so who cares?
Yeah, I'm a pretty considerate person. I mean, usually it's thinking about others.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Right. That's the whole point, though, is like, if you don't consider it to be inconsiderate because the system doesn't qualify these things or characterize them, then it's not inconsiderate. But it's all based on shared belief system.
Sure.
Do we subscribe to it or do we not?
Yeah, and it's also based on experience. And I've been to tons of hotels. I used to travel for work, so I like know that that's okay. You know, to take your stuff up, come back, move your car to the parking lot.
You
I don't even know
always
that was
assume
the
that
thing.
you're right. I know. That was a joke, Frank.
I know. I'm just saying that the experience does play into it.
Yeah. I in closing.
Yeah, I mean, in closing, it's the best way to approach the world to assume you're right.
I think that...
Why would you not assume you're right? And actually, I don't care about that. Why would you not assume I'm right?
Because you're not right a lot.
A lot?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Next week.
I don't know who said this exactly, but I want to attribute it to Richard Rohr. And it
was probably James Clear.
Probably.
Via Alex Hormozy.
It's quite simply that love is accepting what is.
Oh, yeah.
And I just always...
It is Richard Rohr.
Is it?
Yeah, because I collect love quotes.
Right. And I just always come back to this idea that we can only ever love others to the extent that we have learned to love ourselves. So that's why I'm sort of on this quest to dig up all the things that I find disgusting about myself and the potential that I have, so I can learn to accept it as it is.
It is. Do you want the exact quote?
Potentially love others better as a result. Yeah, go ahead.
The exact quote is, love is just learning to say yes to what is.
And
yeah, it's a great quote. I like that one a lot.
I think that's it.
Thanks, guys.
I'm going to put the video meditation thing that I mentioned from Sam Harris in the description for the show notes.
In the show notes.
You can find those down below in the show notes.
Like and subscribe.
Maybe over to the side. I'm not sure.
Hey, it's Frank again. Thanks for listening to an Origins episode of the Unbecoming Platypus podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast to stay updated on future episodes. You can also check us out online at theunbecomingplatypus.com. We hope these conversations inspire you to improve your communication skills and deepen your connections with your own friends and loved ones. Until next time, this has been the Unbecoming Platypus podcast.